And we're back with our candidates of sit-downs. We're moved back into the 35th District. The lady on the camera is Irene Bowling. She's running for 35th District State Senator, prefers the Democratic Party, correct?
That's correct.
Right, okay. Leader Callan off camera. So Irene, take a couple of minutes to briefly tell everybody about yourself, your background, why you're running, and why you feel you're the best candidate for the position.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to discussing these things for your viewers. My name's Irene Bowling. I'm running for State Senate for the 35th LD against Tim Sheldon, Travis Couture. My grandparents moved to Kitsap County in the 1930s. I come from a family of loggers, shake mill owners, educators. My parents worked at PSNS. I have some relatives that have been in the Navy and also stationed in the Puget Sound area here. So I have long and deep roots. I have a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in piano performance. Actually, I'm a concert pianist and I've performed all over the world. And I also have taught Olympic College and at the University of Maryland. And I've run a very successful business, Bowling Music Studios Incorporated, and also an offshoot business, Seattle Sound Effects, for the last 35 years. I'm married to the same man for 35 years, and I have 3 children, Andrew, Michael, and May, and they're college-age kids.
So everyone says their top priority is fully funding education. How do you plan to reach that court-ordered mandate, and can it be done without sacrificing other programs? If cuts must be made, how do you determine what to cut?
Well, I think a very good place to start is to close tax loopholes that have been proposed by many people in the legislature. They're identified as not having a positive fiscal impact on the state. And I even wrote down a couple of examples here. There's a preferential tax for resellers of prescription drugs that benefit out-of-state drug companies. Another one is changing the current non-resident sales tax exemption to a refund program, closing the sales tax loophole for bottled water, an extracted fuel tax loophole that benefits just 5 oil refineries in the state. These things have been proposed, but the majority coalition caucus and the Republican-controlled Senate shot these things down. So this would generate millions of dollars and be a good start in trying to put more revenue in the coffers. I think we definitely have to look into there are 646 different tax loopholes that have been identified. Some of them I'm sure are beneficial to the state, but others are not. And also we need to check about every 5 years at least to make sure that these loopholes are still valid and are really doing what they need to be doing for the state.
Transportation is another priority, and there's been a lot of talk about the need to reform the state's Department of Transportation. How would you accomplish that reform?
Reform is a very interesting word because it means what exactly are reforming, what are the problems involved. One thing we have a big issue with is that the infrastructure, our roads are old, our bridges are old. I mean, these were all built many, many, many years ago, so it's natural that a lot of these things are falling apart. And if you don't keep money going towards these things and repairing them, then we're going to have some big issues. So I think we're at that crux of the problem right now. As far as funding, we definitely need things like the 35th District Belfair bypass. These are things that would involve our situation here. Funding will have to come from different sources. We've let go of the MVET tax, which we could reinstitute, a luxury tax, perhaps, or maybe things that we haven't thought of. But obviously the funding issue is an issue.
Okay, you mentioned the Belfair bypass. What other top transportation needs are in the 35th?
Well, I think it would be fantastic to have a direct route to Tacoma from Mason County to help develop the infrastructure here in our area. That Lynch Road on 101, I know, is very treacherous and dangerous. The Highway 3 going through the Skia, from South Kitsap down into Belfair, that is a dangerous road also and could be expanded. It also could generate a lot more business towards the Skia project.
Do you support a gas tax?
That is a difficult question because we have such long commutes here in Mason County in particular. So I would try to find other sources of revenue before doing that. And also the proposal of 12 cents per gallon that was in the last legislative session, I think is way too high.
What is your position on tolls?
I think when you have big projects like the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, I don't know of any other way to pay it. I mean, I think it is fair to ask the people that use the bridge the most to pay for it. However, I don't think we should have tolls on pre-existing projects and all of a sudden putting tolls on things just because we need to repair them or fix them. So I would prefer that they would be just used for new big projects.
That kind of answers my next questions, are tolls a better way to get projects funded?
You know, again, for us, it's tricky because the same with the gas taxes. I know people, I have students and people in my own business that they go all the way to Tacoma. So not only do they have like an hour commute, but they also have to, pay for the toll bridge. They have to factor that into their budget. It is difficult. Tolls are not ideal, but we have to pay for these big projects in some way.
With the planned widening of Highway 3 through Belfair, in your opinion, will the Belfair bypass still be needed? If so, how can we get the bypass funded and built?
I think we do need the Belfair bypass. I think if we want to develop the infrastructure, the business, the small business, and also bring in large business, we need better road system here. I think that they're inefficient and two-lane roads. You've got big trucks, you've got logging, you've got other manufacturing things that could be brought in here, and it's too slow, it takes too long. So I do think if we want to develop business in Mason County in particular, we need to have better roads. As far as the funding for these things, again, this is a big problem. We need to really look into ways of doing that, and preferably without a gas tax.
Economic development, creating jobs, and attracting industry and business are also priorities. Do you have a plan to help create jobs and attract business to the 35th District? And can you summarize that plan?
Well, economic development is a huge problem, I think, here in this area. And I have many ideas. In fact, I wrote a few down here that I'd like to bring up. The SKIA project, the South Kitsap industrial area there, I took a tour of that about 2 weeks ago with the director of that program, and that is a huge area that could be developed. We need to really think about that seriously. It also could solve some of the problems with the Belfair sewer problem, because that sewer line could be brought up there. So they're kind of in a catch-22 situation. You can't have bring in big manufacturing unless you have industrial waste kinds of programs. However, you don't want to bring the sewer up there if there's no industry to pay for it. So I think trying to link the two, trying to figure out how we can solve that problem, it would develop that area a lot and be a big boon for all of us. We need to improve the roads and the rail lines for faster freight mobility. I think that there's a rail spur that goes in that SKIA. I think it would be wonderful to have a rail line that goes into the Port of Shelton, and then we could take goods out farther west. And so I think that might be something to investigate. We need to bolster and protect our current businesses. I don't understand why we are shipping raw materials to other places, including other countries, and having them processed there. Why are we abandoning our mills and our processing plants here, especially for the lumber industry? I think that that's something to investigate and perhaps encourage businesses to process their materials here in Mason County. And I think education is a paramount problem too. I was just visiting some friends over in Issaquah. They paid a ton of money for their house over there. The house is nothing special, but they did it because of the school district. They have some of the best school districts in the state, like Presidential Scholar Awards, different kinds of awards to high-end schools. They have an inordinate amount of kids that are graduating from those high schools and from those school districts that are doing extremely well. So people are sacrificing a lot to go to those areas so that their kids can get that kind of an education in those school districts. So if we develop a really, really fine school district here and invest in that, wow, we can really do a lot with developing and bringing in and attracting high-end businesses. I think the apprentice programs also, the shipyard has an apprentice program. I was over in South Seattle, looked at the painters and trades apprentice program. It's a multi-million-dollar building that teaches everything from how to lay flooring to all the construction works glaziers, people that put the windows in buildings. It was a very impressive facility, and this is something that we could look into to help train people to do other things besides just college-related fields. I think we should expand Olympic College. I think that it's a long commute into Bremerton, and we could use that liaison with Olympic College to do a lot here in the area. I also think the B&O taxes are too much for small business and thwart growth. I got, in my own business, a small business, I hired 4 extra people a few years ago because we hit a certain level income-wise. I actually had to let them go because it didn't make sense with all the extra money we were making to pay the salaries and pay the taxes. So obviously there's some real problems in our tax structure here in the state that is not encouraging small business but actually punishing small business. And then I also think that developing eco-tourism would be extremely useful here. We have a gorgeous area here. When you consider South Kitsap, this whole Mason County, and the north part of Thurston, which is such a beautiful road when you take Highway 101 down into Olympia. I mean, this is a gold mine of beauty and natural area that people from Seattle or wherever, you know, even internationally will come here. And then, of course, we've got the Olympics over on the other side of the Hoods Canal. So I think that that's something that definitely should be looked into. Also, all the other related things to clean energy, along with ecology. I was talking to a lady the other day that is doing part of a study with the University of Washington, and she has a new septic system where they're using alder as part of the septic system, so they're going to be doing some research on that. We need to look into the acidification of our waters here, which is, of course, affecting our shellfish industry. You know, we're having some problems with some of the trees, and they're becoming more susceptible to bugs and to disease. So all these things also could be an offshoot research, maybe in alliance with University of Washington or other schools across the country, to use this area as kind of a test ground for a lot of these clean energy sources and ways to repair and protect our environment.
Last question for you, Irene. Are you in favor of increasing the minimum wage? If so, how would you propose to raise that wage to lessen the impact on small business?
This is kind of a complicated answer to a very straightforward question. And I'd like to point out the difference in how I see our economy and our working class and the wealthy class and the corporations in comparison to my opponents. They believe that it's kind of a trickle-down theory, that if we give a lot of money and effort and energy and all of our resources to the top, that the crumbs will fall down and we'll be able to pick them up. I don't believe that. I believe that this country is built on the development of the middle class, the working class. And I feel that our policies, including something like the minimum wage, should be to support and protect the middle class. We are being squeezed. We're having an increasingly more difficult time keeping our income levels up, or even keeping our jobs for that matter. Or when we get a new job, it's a lower paying job. So in relation to the minimum wage, I think that a rural area versus downtown Belltown or downtown Seattle, of course there's a big difference. There's a big difference between Bubba Burgers and a McDonald's chain. There's a difference between huge corporations like Walmart that don't pay their fair share, and then the rest of us taxpayers have to pick up the tab for people that aren't being paid correctly and aren't giving any real benefits or job security. So it's a complex question, because if you ask the small business owner, they're saying, oh, well, I've got a very thin profit margin here. If you're talking to the big corporations, it's never quite enough. And if you're talking about the little guy who's just trying to, get a job and pay for his family, some of the people I know have like 2 jobs instead of 1. So I think there's a huge disparity now, income inequality that's occurring. So if raising the minimum wage, maybe not to $15, but maybe like $12.50, if that helps this middle class get their footing again, which has been really devastated, especially since the Great Recession in 2008, then I would be for it. However, I think it should have a sliding scale, and there may be initiatives or tax breaks that could be given to small business that are really hurt by this increase in minimum wage.
All right, I'm Irene Bowling, running for 35th District State Senator. She's running as a Democrat. Thank you for taking some time.
Thank you very much.